All right, my friends, take a breath. Because if you think the worst thing that can happen after a wedding is leftover cake or a tipsy and oversharing, oh sweetheart. This story begins less than 24 hours after the vows, the kiss, and the collective illusion that love automatically scares chaos away.
Spoiler, it doesn't.
When someone says happily ever after, the universe hears perfect timing. And then it leans back and watches. Welcome back to Lying Whispers. This is the place where secrets don't stay quiet, red flags wear perfume, and emotional sabotage comes disguised as concern. So go ahead, grab a coffee or whatever keeps you sane, because you're going to need it for this one. Trust me. Before we dive in, subscribe, and share this with that friend who swears I would never entertain drama like this. Yes, that one. She's lying to herself. Stay with me until the end, my friends. This story doesn't explode right away, it seeps. Our narrator tells this story in third person. Not because she wasn't in it, but because sometimes watching your own mess from the outside makes it easier to breathe and judge. Let's call her Elena. Elena was pushing 40, emotionally literate, sarcastically gifted, and dangerously confident that she had already seen the worst people could offer. Life loves that kind of confidence. It sees it as a challenge. Her brand new husband, fresh vows, fresh ring, fresh optimism. Well, call Marcus. Mid-40s, calm voice, gentle demeanor, and that familiar aura of a man who survived a long relationship by telling himself he did his best. And yes, there was an ex. There is always an ex. Marcus' former wife existed in Elena's mind under a private nickname she never said out loud, Pinot Grudge. Because resentment, like cheap wine, turns sour when it sits too long. The wedding itself? Flawless. Not Instagram fake flawless. Actually flawless. The weather behaved. No one cried at the wrong moment. The dress fit. The suit didn't choke him. Even the photographer caught angles that suggested destiny approved. A social miracle. Elena and Marcus weren't big on public displays. No countdown posts. No forever with my person captions. Their love lived offline. That, my friends, was mistake number one. Because less than a day later, while Elena was still floating somewhere between and married, and did that really happen? Her phone buzzed. She ignored it. Post-wedding time doesn't follow rules. You eat cake for breakfast and forget the day of the week. The phone buzzed again. And again. On the third buzz, Elena sighed, picked it up casually, and froze. A name she did not expect. A name that had no business appearing now. Marcus' ex-wife. Less than 24 hours after the wedding. My friends, that's not coincidence. That's intent. The message started politely. Almost too politely.
Hi.
I believe you just married my ex-husband. Elena blinked. Once.
Twice.
Because nothing good ever follows that sentence. The message went on.
And on. And on.
Pinot Grudge claimed Marcus had tried to reach out over the years. That the most recent attempt was just days before the wedding. That Elena had probably heard awful things about her. That Marcus never took accountability. That he could be perfect until he wasn't. Ah yes. The greatest hits. Warning. Victimhood. Apocalyptic prophecy. All delivered in that sugary tone of him doing this for you. Something cracked inside Elena. Not trust. Not love.
Timing.
Because receiving a message like that doesn't just sting, it contaminates a moment that doesn't belong to the sender. And let's pause here, my friends, because ask yourself honestly. Who messages a bride the day after her wedding?
Exactly.
Someone who hasn't moved on. Someone who refuses to be erased. Elena didn't reply. Not because she wasn't curious. Not because she felt nothing. But because instinct, that sharp thing you earn with age, whispered. If you answer, you invite her in. So she didn't. She placed the phone face down, poured herself coffee, told herself this could only matter if she let it. But the damage was already done. Because even unopened, a message like that exists. And once it exists, it lingers. So tell me, my friends, what would you do in her place? Ignore it?
Confront it?
Trust love or test it? Yeah, that's where things get interesting, my friends. Because theory is cute. Reality? Messy, caffeinated, and emotionally inconvenient. Elena did what most people do when a message like that crawls into their life and refuses to leave. She didn't answer it, but she reread it.
Once. Twice.
Again, slower this time. Not looking for proof. Looking for tone. Because tone tells you more than words ever will. The message didn't sound panicked. It didn't sound urgent. It sounded rehearsed. Calculated calm. Weaponized concern. Elena turned her phone face down like it might start talking back, stared at the ceiling, and thought, this only ruins my marriage if I let it. Bold thought. Optimistic thought. Maybe even naive. But still bold. Eventually, she did the inevitable. She told Marcus. No dramatics. No accusations. She slid the phone across the table and said, "She wrote to me." Marcus read the message once. Then again. His reaction wasn't explosive. No raised voice. No defensive posture. He sighed the kind of sigh that comes from emotional exhaustion, not guilt. "I haven't reached out to her," he said. "Not in years."
Yes.
The most overused sentence in human history. But here's the thing.
He didn't stop there.
Marcus explained the divorce had been long, bitter, and emotionally draining. That she struggled with the finality of it. That boundaries with her had never been clean, not because he wanted connection, but because she refused closure. And then, crucial detail, he offered his phone. No hesitation. No hovering. No suspicious delay. Just placed it on the table. Elena didn't check it. And pause, my friends, because this is where the comment section would split in half. Some of you are screaming, "Check the phone." Others are saying, "If you don't trust him, why marry him?" Elena chose context over paranoia. Marcus' family had warned her about Pinot Grudge long before the wedding. His friends, too. Even another ex one had parted with peacefully had described her as someone who didn't handle endings well. And here's the kicker. During Marcus' previous marriage, Pinot Grudge forbade him from speaking to any exes. Total isolation. Total control. After the divorce, he reconnected with that same ex, now married, with kids, and absolutely uninterested in reopening history. Patterns matter. Elena didn't respond to the message. Didn't accept the request. Didn't block her either. She let it sit, like a cursed object you pretend not to notice. And for a while, it worked. Weeks passed. Holidays came and went. Work resumed. Life stabilized. Elena mentally filed Pinot Grudge under Not My Circus. Marcus did a full digital purge. Unfriended mutuals. Locked down privacy settings. Elena assumed the chapter was closed. Sweet assumption. 1 month into marriage, they made a tiny, innocent mistake. They posted wedding photos. Love.
Joy.
Proof of happiness. And less than an hour later.
No.
Absolutely not. New platform. Same woman. Because when one door closes, some people install windows. Elena didn't open the message. She refused to give the satisfaction of seeing. But there it was.
Sitting.
Waiting. A Schrodinger's DM, both harmless and dangerous until observed. And now, my friends, comes the exhausting part. Do you block and move on? Do you ask for proof? Or do you ignore it and hope she starves without attention? Because let me tell you something real quick. If someone truly just wanted to warn you, they'd send one message and disappear. They wouldn't chase you across platforms. Chasing isn't protection. It's obsession. Elena showed Marcus the new message. He was embarrassed, upset, apologetic.
He promised to handle it.
But here raised the question that wouldn't leave Elena's mind. Why was his ex contacting her? And not him?
Exactly.
Because Elena wasn't collateral damage. She was the target. And that, my friends, is when a story stops being about truth and starts being about control. So tell me, would you block her immediately? Would you demand proof? Or would you keep ignoring and protect your peace?
Yeah.
That illusion doesn't last long, my friends. Because some people don't get bored when ignored. They get creative. Elena tried to keep living normally.
Work.
Friends. Dinner plans. Laughing at things that didn't involve emotional landmines. But that unopened message sat in her notifications like a blinking warning light. Not loud. Just persistent. And then, another message. Same platform. Different account. At that point, Elena didn't feel surprised. She felt tired. And here's the part people don't talk about enough. Constant low-level stress doesn't explode, it erodes. The new message was shorter. Worse. I see you're still happy. I was too once. My friends, that's not information. That's psychological warfare. Because it's vague enough to haunt you, but empty enough to deny intent. Elena felt it then, the shift. Not suspicion of Marcus. Suspicion of the situation. Because when someone keeps insisting there's a fire, your brain eventually smells smoke even if there isn't one.
She didn't respond right away.
Instead, she sat with Marcus and told him everything. The new account, the message, the feeling she couldn't shake. Marcus didn't get defensive. He got serious. If she had real proof, he said, she would have sent it already. And that sentence landed hard. Because it's true. People don't hoard evidence for months just to hint at it. They show it. They drop it. They disappear. What Pinot Grudge was doing wasn't exposing truth. She was stretching doubt. That's when Elena made a decision. She would respond, but not emotionally. No accusations. No vulnerability. Just logic. She opened the message and typed one sentence. If what you're saying is true, show proof. Otherwise, please stop contacting me.
Cold. Clear.
Controlled. She sent it. Silence. Hours passed.
Then a day.
Then 2. Elena felt relief. Maybe that was it. Oh, how adorable that thought was. 3 days later. An attachment. And my friends, I physically leaned back when this part happened. An attachment is never good news in stories like this. Elena stared at the screen longer than she wanted to admit. Opening it meant crossing a line. After that, nothing would be hypothetical. But curiosity and the need for closure won. She opened it. Screenshots. Messages.
Dates.
Context carefully trimmed. And here's where things get dangerous. Some messages were old. Some had no replies. Some looked like Marcus responding in short, neutral sentences, the kind you send when you're trying to shut something down without igniting drama. Nothing romantic. Nothing explicit. But also not nothing. And that's the worst category of all. Because betrayal is easy to label. Gray areas are not. Elena felt the ground shift beneath her feet, not because her marriage was collapsing, but because the story was no longer simple. So tell me, my friends, does this change everything? Or does it change nothing? Because that's the moment, my friends, when certainty quietly packs its bags and leaves. Elena closed the attachment. Not because she'd seen enough, but because she'd seen too much. The screenshots didn't scream affair. They didn't whisper innocence either. They lived in that exhausting gray space where context matters and certainty dies. And that gray space, that's where doubt does push-ups. Elena didn't cry. She didn't yell. She didn't spiral. She sat there very still and did the most dangerous thing a person can do in a situation like this, she thought. She thought about timelines, about messy divorces and people who don't respect endings, about how some conversations aren't about desire, they're about survival. Because here's a truth no one likes to admit. Sometimes people respond not because they want to reconnect, but because they want the noise to stop. But still, there were replies. And replies mean presence. Elena asked Marcus to sit with her. She showed him the screenshots without commentary. No accusations. No tone. Just silence. Marcus studied them, and something shifted in his expression, not panic, not guilt, recognition. That's when I was trying to shut it down, he said quietly. She wouldn't accept silence. I thought neutral replies would end it. Classic mistake. He walked her through each message, each date, each context. He hadn't initiated. He hadn't flirted. He hadn't hidden. But he also hadn't been fully transparent. And then Elena asked the question that changes relationships. Why didn't you tell me? Marcus hesitated, not because he didn't have an answer, but because he did. I didn't want her to exist in our marriage. That landed heavy. Because intention doesn't erase impact. By trying to protect their peace, had left a crack. And someone else had crawled through it. Elena took that in. She didn't excuse it, but she understood it. And hair race where maturity shows up unannounced. She said, calmly, I get the context, but my peace can't be the cost of your discomfort. Silence again. But this time it was clean. They made a decision together. Total block. Every account. Every platform. No responses. No explanations. No emotional labor. If Pinot Grudge reappeared, the next step wouldn't be conversation, it would be consequences. Elena blocked everything. Marcus did the same. And for the first time, since the wedding, there was quiet. Not a fairy tale ending. A realistic one. Trust wasn't broken. It was recalibrated. Boundaries weren't assumed. They were defined. And Pinot Grudge? She disappeared. Not because she healed, but because she lost her audience. So here is the takeaway, my friends. Not every warning is given out of care. Not every response is a betrayal. And not every screenshot tells the whole story. Sometimes the real threat isn't what's being said. It's who's trying to control the narrative. So tell me, would you have trusted? Would you have questioned? Or would you have shut the door the very first time?
Comment it.
I need to know. And if this story made you uncomfortable, good. That's where clarity lives. Like, subscribe, and share, my friends. Because around here, whispers are never just whispers.